The Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection is in a really weird spot right now.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that. In this video, posted exactly 1 week after the release of the Battlefront Classic Collection, yeah, you could describe the state of affairs that way. So, little background here, some of you may remember this video I made about the Battlefront Classic Collection, and if you watched that video, you may also remember a moment in that video where I threw some shade at Chopper. Reason being is Chopper had made a video hyping up the Battlefront Classic Collection and had pretty self-evidently gotten a copy of the game early from Aspyr. But when the game actually came out and was completely broken, he didn't have anything to say on the matter. Now, it's perfectly believable that Aspyr sent people early builds of the game, and those builds that they played early did not have all the problems the public build did. It is entirely possible that's what happened. In fact, the only reason I'm saying it's possible that happened is because I didn't literally see it myself, but I'm pretty positive that is what happened. And if that is what happened, all Chopper would have had to do really was apologize, come clean about what happened behind the scenes, and we would all move on. But that's not what happened. In fact, on the day the game came out, Chopper made exactly one tweet about the Battlefront Classic Collection, and it was this, and then he never made another tweet about the game ever again. Seriously, never again. He posted a promotional video for a broken game, hyped up a podcast where he talked about the broken game, and then never talked about it or apologized for the fact that he promoted a broken product. Or at least if he did apologize for it, it wasn't anywhere public enough that people would notice or that I have found. And you would think that someone with a sub base this large, over 500,000 subscribers, he would want to correct the record. But just 1 week after the Battlefront Classic Collection came out, he posted this video that you and I are going to watch together, and let me tell you, he, does not exactly take responsibility, or do anything really close to that. And just to be clear, I'm not saying he should have predicted that the public build of the game was going to be broken, but he absolutely should have said literally anything about this, and he most certainly should not have broken the week-long silence with the nonsense that we're about to watch. Aspyr must have written you a very large check. I hope it was worth it.
And for anybody who's, not in the loop about this game or what's going on, this is obviously two classic Battlefront games that have been remastered and basically upscaled for the next generation of consoles.
Yeah, that's what they were. They were remastered and upscaled. That's totally what the game was, and not actually a major criticism of said game. We're wasting no time twisting the narrative here.
And it's been sitting at an overwhelmingly negative review on Steam. And you might be asking yourself why, if you have no clue what's been going on with it or why, but there's a lot of interesting developments that's happening with the situation as well.
Yeah, be sure to completely skip over the reasons why it was overwhelmingly negative on Steam, and let's just go right into how it's going to be improved. And before he says anything about the totally awesome developments and improvements being made on this game, I'm writing my video on April 11th, and the game has made it all the way up to a whopping 20% on Steam. 20% approval after all those amazing developments. Congratulations.
Because this has been one of the most disastrous video game launches of all time. The only other title I can really equate it to is the launch of the Halo Master Chief Collection. This feels very similar insofar as, these classics got released, and it's practically non-functional in every single way.
And now that we've been honest for 15 seconds, let's do some damage control!
And Aspyr, who are the studio that produced the Battlefront Classic Collection, are being absolutely raked over the coals by the public, and in some sense, I do think much of it is justified. There are a few things that I'm absolutely baffled by, how they ever got greenlit or was even past QA testing. I have no idea how some of this stuff worked.
Stick with it. Stick with it, I promise. The nonsense bomb is dropping very soon. It's like he had to develop some kind of legitimacy before completely shilling for Aspyr to keep the early game codes coming in. So just stick with it.
But the main problem people have with the Battlefront Classic Collection, for the most part, is the fact that the multiplayer just simply does not work.
But we're keeping this video up, by the way. Multiplayer doesn't work, but I'm keeping my multiplayer guide up and public without any addendum or edits or even a pinned comment. YouTube is fun.
There's a myriad of other technical issues, textures not loading in properly, glitches within the game itself, and apparently the game on PC is in a far worse state than it is on any console version.
And just so we're all on the same page, the PS5 version is sitting with a 2.5 out of 10 on Metacritic versus the 1.5 for the PC version. Like, was this even worth mentioning? Like, why are you even trying to act like there's some stunning difference in quality between platforms? One is slightly less garbage than the other. You promoted them both.
I've been playing mostly on PlayStation 5, so while a lot of the problems I've not faced myself, to some degree I have experienced my fair share of bugs and hitches in the game and just things that really don't function properly.
Oh, that's why. That's why you did it, to preemptively dodge criticism to some degree by pleading ignorance. You're so clever, Chopper.
But for the most part, everything outside of the multiplayer seems to be relatively intact.
You hear that, guys? Outside of the multiplayer, this game is mostly intact. You know, aside from the audio bugs, the split screen bugs, the mission bugs, the crashes, the texture issues, the frame rate cap that wasn't in the original game. Yeah, you know, outside of the multiplayer, everything's still intact. Nicely done.
Now, with that being said, the Battlefront Classic drama goes a bit deeper than you might be expecting, because not only is the multiplayer not really working, although they have released a day one patch that's about 17 gigs.
Oh, neat. The update was bigger than the entirety of the classic game. Fantastic, I love this.
And it's done a lot for the quality of the game, admittedly.
Again, we're still at 20% on Steam, and if you look at Steam reviews and sort by most recent, it's not like things are getting much better with time. Like, look, this is sorted by most recent. The best we could do was a weird patch of like 3 or 4 that all came in at once, which is weird, but you know, it is what it is. And my video is coming like 3 weeks after this video that we're watching together. It's not looking like any substantial progress is being made.
And it's made the multiplayer a lot more functional than it was on day one.
Because it did not work on day one, my boy. Literally anything would be more functional than day one.
I believe the problem is Aspyr is now fighting to gain, public opinion back, to get their reputation, and more importantly, restoring the reputation of the game, because as we all know, it's really hard to win back public opinion when a game launches and is a complete and utter disaster.
Yes, that is quite hard, and you know who knows that? Absolutely everyone, including Aspyr. They didn't actually care about this product, and they're not going to patch it up super hard and make the thing that we were hoping it would be, or that they told us it would be. No, they're just going to patch the minimum required amount to not get sued, and then they're going to move on. You know why? Because if they actually cared about making this game and providing a good product, they would have done so. They wouldn't have shipped a product this blatantly broken and unfinished. There's such a thing as launching horribly and then getting fixed up by a passionate team who were just thrust into an unfortunate release situation and weren't able to complete their vision by the time deadlines hit. Tell me with a straight face that is what happened to the Battlefront Classic Collection. Look me in my eyeballs and tell me that's what happened.
It's really funny. Aspyr released a statement a couple of days ago. It's actually 24 hours after the launch of the game. And they're essentially saying yo, lads, thank you for all the support on the Classic Collection. At this point, I don't think the word support is the right to use, because they were being literally raked over the coals.
And deservedly so. Another reason why they're never actually fixing this is their statement is blatantly downplaying the criticism. A studio that gave at least a little bit of shit would at least make one of those corny apology JPEGs. But the best Aspyr could do was this. We'd like to thank the Battlefront community for their overwhelming support and feedback on the Battlefront Classic Collection release. At launch, we experienced critical errors with our network infrastructure. The result was incredibly high ping, matchmaking errors, crashes, and servers not appearing in the browser. Right, because all the issues came from the network infrastructure and nothing else. Since launch, we've been working to address these issues and increase network stability, and we will continue our efforts until our network infrastructure is stabilized to prevent further outages. Please continue to report bugs, errors, or unexpected behaviors to our support team via our request form. The Aspyr team. That's the best they could do. After one of the most disastrous launches, this is the best they could do. And somehow, your video continues to get worse.
I don't think people were really supporting this as much as they say, but I understand what they're getting at. They're just trying to reassure the community that they are still working on it.
No, yeah, that's totally the impression I get from them.
And I think this was just a couple of hours before the actual first day one patch, which admittedly is a good update. I will say that.
Yeah, guys, the day one patch did such a good job. We went from overwhelmingly negative to mostly negative. Blow up the party balloons. Also, while researching the state of the game, I found this kind of funny thread on the Battlefront subreddit from a deleted user, shocker, he's deleted, who claims the game is totally fixed. And then the entire thread is just people warning everyone else that OP is full of shit. In case you really wanted to hammer home the state of affairs with the Battlefront Classic Collection.
We live in a world in which the state in which a game launches in is almost never how it is, even like a day or two later. There's always a big day one patch that has to address a multitude of issues to usually get it to where it should have launched in the beginning.
Yeah, and this practice is widely hated by absolutely everyone, and the developers who actually give a shit about their product don't need them. At least not this drastically.
For full disclosure, I ended up getting a review copy of the Classic Collection, and even in the time that, in between me playing it before its public release and when I had it, the game was very different. All of the menus had like different UIs. I mean, like the whole structure was not the same as it is now, like the launch version.
Which is why I waited a whole week to talk about this. I mean, the game I promoted was literally an entirely different product than the one that I played, but you guys didn't need to know about that until a week later.
And even heroes were different. Asajj Ventress and Kit Fisto had entirely different animations and movesets, which just makes me feel like they were scrambling to the very last minute to somehow like get this game in a working order. Like they weren't even done animating heroes by the time I got a copy.
What's that? A decent point? Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not a decent point, because the footage he showed for all of that allegedly decent point doesn't actually properly show off what people were upset about. Yes, this was a criticism being made, but no, your footage does not properly show it off because you framed it as a one-to-one comparison when your footage is literally not a one-to-one comparison. You were so close to actually getting something. And my favorite part of the video is still coming up. Just stick with it a few more seconds.
We should have known right then and there that something was going to go badly wrong, because if they don't even have stuff like that finalized and in a working order, I can't imagine something as complex as getting online multiplayer to run smoothly would be in any better position.
Yeah, sure, whatever. We'll go with that. My favorite part's coming up. Everyone shut up.
Now, I want to be fair for a moment, because I do think part of it is the fact that we expect as modern gamers to have an online experience that is as smooth as modern games for the most part. And I don't think these 20-year-old games structurally are capable of that, honestly.
Best part of the video, right there. We as gamers just expected too much from this game because we were expecting, checks notes, a 2024 multiplayer game to have smooth multiplayer. And not only that, by the way, but it's also a problem with the games themselves, apparently. They're just not structurally capable of being run in a smooth multiplayer environment. Well, first of all, Chopper. Like, I'm actually really pissed off at Chopper right now. 500,000 subs, and this is what you're putting out to people. But first of all, if that were the case, and what you said was true, why did they sell us a multiplayer game? Second of all, bullshit. Like, everything you just said is literally bullshit. You're telling me they couldn't take these PS2 era game assets and just program a modern matchmaking system around them? You think that's not possible? Because you are wrong if so. Case in point, Halo 1 and 2 on the Master Chief Collection. Another case in point, the Slippy project for Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is a fan-made mod that adds full matchmaking and rollback netcode to a game that didn't even have multiplayer to begin with. And you're trying to argue that Battlefront 1 and 2 were never going to have a modern online experience because they were never built for this. But this is 2024. Aspyr absolutely could have programmed a modern matchmaking and playlist system into this game. They did not. They could have launched the game with functional servers. They did not. It sounds to me like you got caught taking Aspyr's checks and are now trying to meet your audience halfway without actually taking responsibility for trying to hype a broken product. And like, the thing is, you totally could have just been like, hey guys, listen, the build I played early was a different build than the one that launched. I didn't know it was going to launch broken. My bad. That is all you had to say. But now, you're partially passing the blame onto the consumer for having too high of expectations when really all we were expecting was exactly the thing Aspyr said we were getting. If these games were not structurally capable of modern multiplayer, why is that what they sold us? And just to nail the coffin shut on this dog shit argument, you say these games were never built for a modern online experience, but the OG versions of these games have better online functionality right now than the re-releases. Aspyr fucked this one up. Stop trying to justify their mistakes, and how fucking dare you even try to pass this off as a problem of expectations, you absolute fucking hack. Woo! Got that out of my system. Okay, let's move on.
Not that they're not able to be functional and run smoothly. I mean, they had online functionality back in the day.
And also right now, you can boot up classic Battlefront 2 and play online on Steam right now. That's why this is so egregious. You released a better version of classic Battlefront 2, and yet vanilla Battlefront 2 runs better and is better online. In fact, at the time that I'm recording this video, there are more people playing Classic Battlefront 2 on Steam than there are playing the Classic Collection. And the Classic Collection is still less than a month old. Aspire, genuinely, how did you accomplish this? This is impressive.
But they were made for very different tech, and also the games are somewhat archaic, so...
I say it again, if they weren't capable of giving us the thing they promised, why did they promise it to us? They sold you a re-release of the game with multiplayer. If the multiplayer on that game was never going to be possible, why did they sell it to us? And why are you talking as if it's the consumer's fault for expecting something out of their reach? What Aspire was promising with the Classic Collection was entirely technically possible to give us. It's not like adding modern online functionality to an older game is impossible. It's not like this hasn't been done before. I bring up Slippy again. A small group of fans modded full-fledged matchmaking and rollback netcode into Super Smash Bros. Melee, a 2001 GameCube game that never had online functionality to begin with. They did it for free. Aspire absolutely could have paid someone to do the same thing to Battlefront. The fact you're even trying to make this a problem with expectations is insanity.
I can understand the multiplayer not being the smoothest experience, but smooth is very different to functional.
Ho-ho! All right, here we go.
And when I played it online recently, the game was hardly functional at all.
So why'd you bring this up? Why make the distinction if not to minimize it somehow?
Which is depressing, but the thing is, I do still feel that most of the single-player content is relatively intact.
Okay, so the updates are fixing things and things are getting better, but also the multiplayer is still not functional. The multiplayer also being the whole reason people bought this thing, because the single-player content was already available to them. I love this. This is great.
Now, here's where stuff with the Classic Collection gets weird, though, and where the drama goes a bit more down the rabbit hole. Aspire Studios have been accused of stealing animations from high-profile modders in the Battlefront community.
Yeah, they were accused of that because they did it. The framing is everything here, That's why I felt the need to make this video. Aspire was accused of stealing mods and taking credit because they did steal mods and take credit. It's not an accusation, it's a description of what happened. If you witness someone punching someone else in the face and you filmed the whole thing on your phone and you have objective proof that it happened, you don't accuse them of punching someone in the face. They literally did punch someone in the face. The word accuse carries a degree of uncertainty or a lack of hard evidence. Oh my God. How much did they pay you?
Most in particular, Asajj Ventress and really Kit Fisto. And the thing is, these modders completely made all of these animations and movesets, and Aspire basically just lifted them without any compensation or credit to the modders.
So it's not an accusation. It's a shady thing the company did. Why are you not more upset about this? Why is this video so apologetic on Aspire's behalf?
Now, I understand it'd probably be hard to credit modders in the official version of the game itself.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be hard to do that. Plenty of other games have done this. What the fuck are you on about?
But even just compensating them for their work would have been something, but it doesn't seem that that was the case, and they're definitely under fire about that.
Which I know is just so upsetting to you for some reason.
It appears that there was no effort on Aspire's end to even, reach out to these modders and contact them, or even compensate them, or just work out some kind of deal that is agreeable agreeable for both parties so that everybody gets what they want.
Because it would have been too hard to do so, right?
There was no kind of negotiation or compromise at all.
Insert the negotiations were short Phantom Menace meme.
And that makes Aspyr look really bad. I totally agree with that. And that's the thing is Aspyr, when looked at its worst, you could say the Battlefront Classic Collection is recycling an old game through AI upscaling, which they didn't really even do much work themselves.
Did you catch how he prefaced that criticism with the phrase, when looked at its worst? Bro, you don't have to look at the game at its worst. The game is just like this. Again, why are you so apologetic on Aspyr's behalf? You made an hour-plus long video about Modern Warfare 3 being terrible. But when an even worse game comes along from a technical standpoint and from a respect of the consumer standpoint, at least in my opinion, they Battlefront Classic Collection and Modern Warfare 3 are at best on par with each other in terms of how they treat the consumer. The best you can muster is a 9.5-minute video of partial criticism and partial justification. This is pathetic.
The multiplayer is non-functional and they have stolen animations. If you want to look at the Classic Collection in the worst light possible, this is it.
No, that's not the worst light possible. That's the reality.
It's basically a rehashed game with AI doing the work and stolen animations. So
no, it's not a rehashed game. If it were a rehashed game, it would at least work properly. It's less than a rehashed game. That's the problem.
Does Aspyr really deserve credit for making this or for now patching the game to try to make it more functional? Well, that's really up to you.
And also you? You're making the video?
The problem is I feel like they've already lost in the court of public opinion. With a disastrous launch, it's really hard to get people, back on track and on your side.
I mean, they could have issued an actual apology and pulled the game from sale until it was ready, and a lot of people would be willing to forgive it. They could have released a roadmap for updates, and that would have been something. You're right that a rough launch can make it hard to come back, but there are countless examples of how to do that comeback correctly. And Aspyr isn't doing any of it because they don't care. That's the biggest problem, and you're ignoring it.
They had everybody in a chokehold before this released. They had the entire community on their side before the game even launched. All they had to do was release these two classic experiences with a relatively functioning game, and that's about it. I mean, honestly, besides the bugs and glitches, those things have been ironed out.
Oh, the bugs and glitches have been ironed out. They've been ironed out, guys. There's no more bugs and glitches. That's fucking news to me. And also everyone on the Steam forums.
I think people being upset with the lack of multiplayer functionality is totally fair, but the game is also not really built to be a modern multiplayer experience.
Shut the fuck up. They sold you a multiplayer game in 2024. If the game wasn't built for that, why did they sell us that?
In my opinion, this game is only worth buying if you're planning on playing this couch co-op.
Which is why you made a video about the best heroes to use in it, right? And why you haven't taken that video down. You don't think the multiplayer is worth playing, but you're insisting on keeping the multiplayer game guide up. Okay. Yeah, cool guy you are. Cool guy. Super high integrity level here.
And the reason I say that specifically, couch co-op, is you can play the online experience and it's going to be fine. I actually think in probably a couple weeks' time, the online experience for both Battlefront 1 and 2 will be okay. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. They've already addressed a lot of the issues like not being able to invert flight controls and stuff like that.
Because inverted flight controls were the #1 issue with the multiplayer, yes.
Many of these things that, should have been just givens for the launch. I'm not saying the online experience is going to be equivalent to a modern game. I still think it's going to feel and play very archaic no matter what they do to it.
It's archaic compared to the 2005 version that is still available on Steam right now. You dork.
Just because these games are so damn old.
Yeah, the problem is that the games are old. That's why the nearly 20-year-old version runs better and functions more completely right now.
But the reason I say I only recommend for couch co-op, playing a console couch co-op with a game that looks nice like this is going to be much better than trying to, co-op it on PC.
Press X to doubt.
But that's the thing, if you're just wanting to play it by yourself or do some, do the online experience or play the campaigns even, you can buy the classic Battlefront games on PC for cheaper than what the Classic Collection is.
It took you 7 minutes and 45 seconds to bring this up. 7 minutes and 45 seconds to bring this up. You absolute damage controlling clown.
You can get the originals on Steam for like $5 to $10, and that is way better than the $30 that you'll need to spend to get the Classic Collection at this point.
Also, no mention of file size, I'm noticing. Interesting.
But if you're really looking to only play like the multiplayer experience and you're not super interested in like the single player content, the campaigns, or like Galactic Conquest all that much, then I don't really think this is going to be worth your time.
So over 8 minutes of minimizing the problem to finally say that you don't think you should buy this version of the game over the originals. And you really didn't even take that stance very firmly. Super high integrity level here.
Even after all of these patches and, bug fixes come out, I just don't know if that's really going to be worth. Now, Aspyr is at least not abandoning the game from what it appears right now.
Well, yeah, it appears that way to you because you're making the video less than a week after the game launched. I'm making my video on April 11th, and from where I stand, it looks like they absolutely are abandoning the game. You go to the Steam forums and you'll see tons of threads of people asking if patches are ever actually coming because the game is still a mess. I ask again, if you really think the game was such a problem and had all of these issues, why are you so eager to be optimistic about it? Especially when you're the same dude who did an hour-plus long video about how terrible Modern Warfare 3 was. And just in case this wasn't clear, his Modern Warfare 3 video is great. Like, genuinely, go watch it. I have no idea what happened between that video and this one, other than a check from Aspyr. It's the only explanation I can think of.
But modders have even taken it into their own hands to try to fix the Classic Collection. There are plenty of mods that if you're playing on PC, you can play a more smooth and refined experience than what Aspyr released.
Oh, okay. The game is fine because of mods. Which, if you're happy with letting modders fix the game up, genuinely what reason is there not to buy the original version and mod that? Right?
I'm sure they're going to release official patches from here on out.
Top 10 things that didn't age well.
That will try to address these problems, but the fact that the community is taking it into their own hands already.
I mean, not really. People have been modding classic Battlefront for fucking ever. It's really not surprising that people already had some blueprints for the Classic Collection's mods. Also, a lot of the technical issues in the Classic Collection are so fucking basic that, again, not surprising they're already being fixed with mods. It makes you wonder why they haven't been officially fixed if the modders have already made them this much better.
Is pretty insane. But I don't know if Aspyr really deserves the credit for all this.
They don't.
Because again, it's an old game that was essentially visually upscaled through AI, and then they stole animations of heroes and then released it with a non-functional multiplayer.
At least you're not calling it an accusation anymore.
That's the absolute worst way to look at it, and I get that's incredibly pessimistic.
No, it's not pessimistic. It's what happened. Stop with this hand wave wording. It's so pathetic. Take a stance. Jesus.
But I really do hope that somehow they're able to turn the narrative around and people will come back to the Classic Collection, because there is a ton of good content to experience on it.
Content that you can get for less money and better performance and a smaller file size by just getting the original versions on Steam.
But again, you can experience a lot of this content for much cheaper on PC if you're just planning on playing it alone.
And online? Like bro, look at the Steam charts. If you want to play classic Battlefront with other people, the old versions are the way to go. Like, objectively.
I still do think it's worth it if you really want to play the single-player stuff couch co-op, but that's really about all I can recommend.
And even then, the local split screen still has a number of issues from what I'm seeing. Granted, it's not like a lot of people are still testing this piece of shit, but it's also not like Aspyr is pumping out the patches, so why would people continue to test it? You know what I mean?
Even today, right after the day one patch, the game is in a much better state than it was when it actually came out.
Yeah, it went from overwhelmingly negative to mostly negative. What an accomplishment.
And that's great, but the thing is it too little too late? You guys let me know what you think, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, you're a shill. I truly hope Aspyr wrote you a fat check for this, because holy hell, I am never taking anything you say seriously ever again. You made a video promoting the Classic Collection, you released it on the game's launch day, and then you effectively went radio silent on the matter until you uploaded this, and now you've gone radio silent again. And it's like I said at the beginning, if you had just been like, hey guys, I did a sponsorship with the game, I didn't know the launch version was going to be broken, Aspyr obviously hid that from us, and now I'm going to criticize them because that's a shady thing to do and this game is a disaster. If you had just done that, I wouldn't be making this video. Because in that scenario, genuinely none of what happened would have been your fault. But instead, you waited a full week to make this video, where you spend like 40% of it glossing over the problems, 50% of it damage controlling, and 10% of it just being wrong. So yeah, you can get the fuck out of my sub box, Chopper. And in case you think I'm being harsh about this, 500,000 subscribers. Be better than this. Toodles.